Hey everyone, this is Charles Williams from CW Consulting, and I've got a special announcement for all my principal colleagues out there. I know that this job can be one of the loneliest in the world. Hello? See? So look, we have created a special show hosted by principals, featuring principals, called Inside the Principal's Office. Come check us out this Saturday at SchoolRubric. I'll see you there.
Hi, I'm Michael McWilliams of the LearningLeader.live. I'm a principal in Texas, and a winter storm has shut down our schools for a week. There are millions without power. Boy, I tell you, leadership is very challenging, and that is why I am so excited that SchoolRubric has created a safe place for school leaders to connect, to network, to collaborate, and discuss best practices. It's called Inside the Principal's Office, and I invite you to join us this Saturday on SchoolRubric, all their social media platforms. I'm looking to see you inside the principal's office.
Well, good morning, afternoon, or evening to everyone in the world, and thank you so much for tuning in to the first of what we hope will be many episodes of Inside the Principal's Office. I'm your co-host, Charles Williams, principal of Plato Learning Academy in Chicago, Illinois. Now look, we've started this venture, what we call Inside the Principal's Office, in partnership with SchoolRubric, because we know how lonely the principal's chair can sometimes be. And we believe by providing these safe spaces, we can have honest conversations and share solutions with other principals and school leaders from around the world. Now, with that being said, I'd like to pass the mic over to my co-host and principal partner, Michael McWilliams, to tell us more about himself as well as his vision for this initiative. Mike?
Share. We're so passionate about what we do and supporting students, and we have just as much to learn from each other in this journey as we do share as well. As Charles mentioned, my name is Michael McWilliams, and I'm a career principal with over 20 years of leadership experience, and I'm currently the principal at Savannah Elementary School in Denton, Texas. Where in the world is Denton? Denton is 30 minutes north of Dallas. I can tell you that one of the exciting things about launching a new venture like this is just connecting with other passionate school administrators from around the world. Today, we have two great guests with us, our principal counterparts in schools across the world. We have Tara from Pennsylvania, and we have Tim from Columbia. We'd like to extend both of you a warm welcome to the show, and we ask that you share a little bit about yourself before we begin. Tara, let's start with you.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I am Tara Desiderio, the very, very proud principal of West Coastville Elementary School in the East Penn School District. And I have been I've been an administrator for about 13 years, in education over 20. And honestly, it's been one of the most exciting journeys I could ever have asked for. I'm also the proud mom of two wonderful kids, and work with our Education Never Dies team on Twitter and Culture Ed team. And also I'm a future ready advisor for our principal strand. So those are all things I'm extremely proud of and just humbled to be here. So thanks for having me.
I'm Tim Shirk. I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois. Got an education as a special educator. My original background is working with at-risk students, alternative education. And about 10 years ago, I went into international teaching, which was possibly the best decision I ever made. Spent 10 years in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, as a teacher and a principal. And now I'm the high school principal in Cali, Colombia.
Tim, I would love to be able to have some principal positions in all of those wonderful places, especially with all the cold hitting Chicago right now.
Well, I know how that is. That was one of the reasons when an opportunity to move to Rio came up. I was like, I think I'm gonna have to take that one.
There you go. There you go. So the structure for today's show is pretty focused, and we'll be sharing our thinking as school leaders, especially for our plans for our schools post-pandemic. Even though the next school year is still several months away, that discussion and planning process starts now, even with all the unknowns and all the uncertainty. So as we discuss, we invite everyone to leave us a comment or a question in the chat. I see so many of you joining us. I saw Claire and Matt and Debbie and so many more. So thank you for joining us today. So please make sure that you leave your comments and your questions because we always appreciate that interaction. Now, we've gathered two really insightful questions from colleagues for discussion today. So we're going to jump into our first question, which comes from Michael Fulton, an elementary school principal from Louisville, Texas.
Hi, I'm Michael Fulton, an assistant principal from Louisville, Texas. The pandemic forced all of us to implement creative solutions to ensure continuity of learning amid all the disruptions. What has been one strategy as a school leader you have found to be so effective during the pandemic that you will continue to implement post-pandemic?
That is a great question. There's so many negative things, but of course, there's always a silver lining. So Tim, I'm excited to hear what you have. Take it away.
All right. Well, the number one thing that for me, anyways, as a principal, it's Zoom. It's video conferencing technologies, and I think right now we all have Zoom fatigue, rightfully so. We're clocking in a lot of screen time every day, but I think once we get back to whatever the new normal is, and our screen time goes down to acceptable limits, we're going to find that these video conferencing technologies are going to open up so many different opportunities. And for me as a principal, for me personally, and my personal day-to-day, it's all about community relations. One of the things that I've been doing for the past, since I've been a principal for 7 years now, is something called Breakfast with the Principal, or Principal's Coffee. And this was a once-a-month event, normally attended by maybe 15 mothers that decided to stick around after they dropped their kids off in the morning, and lucky if I got a dad or two. So now I've switched these virtual on Zoom, hold them at 6 p.m. at night, and I've gone from audiences of 15 to audiences of 150 to 200, with mothers and fathers sitting side by side. So that, to me, in terms of parent engagement, parent-teacher conferences, it's just taking it to another level. And the parents have told me, Tim, this is awesome. We got to keep doing this post-pandemic, and I plan to.
It's a wonderful idea. I spoke about something very similar, especially with my good friend Tara, who is joining us today. And so with that being said, Tara, I'm going to bring it over to you.
Sorry, this is one of my favorite topics of conversation. You and I have talked a lot about this, is that something that I've always been extremely passionate about is communication between home and school and building those bridges, and how important it is to make that connection. And so when we're talking about the power of connection, and just like Tim said, the silver linings that exist right now, there are so many. When we look truly at how important it is to be connected to our families and how we're doing that and how we're meeting them where they're at and understanding people's hidden stories. I think now more than ever, we've been afforded the opportunity to really get to know our parents. The one thing we did when this whole pandemic started was that our main focus was for us to really connect with our parents. And each one of our teachers made connections with our parents at home. So they called each and every one of them and said, how are you? What do you need? How can we help you? And we haven't lost that. And so our trajectory, when we're looking at where we're going with all of this, we're looking at how we can continue to meet parents where they're at and our kids where they're at, so that together we can make them as successful as they can be. When we're really looking at this and talking about I love what Tim's doing and meeting with parents, we're doing the same kinds of things where we are meeting with parents on Zoom, having IEP meetings, having team meetings, and they're actually able to meet with us because they can step away from their job for 5-10 minutes to get to us, whereas driving all the way to the school and coming in and stepping away from their workday just wasn't feasible so many times. And how often did we make the assumption that they weren't coming because they didn't care, right? So this is brought to light, like how do we get people involved in their kids' educations, and how do we keep moving that forward, knowing what their situation is? Do we know their why? Do we know their hidden stories? And do we know how we can really get them actively engaged in their kids' educations? And that's something we definitely won't lose sight of.
Tara, I love that, this idea, right? We heard it so much, is that parents, they don't care, they're not invested, they don't value. But the reality is that they were so busy with other things that now, like you said, when we meet them where they're at, we can see that, right? No, they are truly invested. We just have to give them the avenue to be part of their child's education. So thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tara. And Mike, I'm sure as an amazing principal down in Texas, you might have an idea or two about this as well.
I do. And I think that it's amazing that we all have kind of really identified the importance of communication, and most definitely technology is helping us. And I don't think that I'll let go of using technology post-pandemic. I think that one of the things that I found was a lot of our systems, we could easily flip to a virtual setting. But what we had to do as an administrative team and as a school was really communicate. So we too have Mugs with Mac, which started out 4 times a year. Parents ask, can we do this every month? So we do it the fourth Thursday of every month. So we're communicating with the parents. But the other thing that I've done during the pandemic is found that I've had to constantly stay on message, and not just with parents, but my communication even with our kids have changed. I used to have a team we used to do video announcements, and the kids would do announcements in the morning. I kind of took over that, and it is just amazing the amount of community that it is built in the school, because there are certain messages every day, our behavior expectations, our academic expectations, our word of the week, all of those things is just very important for everyone in the learning community to hear the principal and administrative voice every single day. So I do announcements on Facebook, and after announcements are done, I talk to parents every single day. And I think that that's important, and that's something that I'll continue to do. Teachers need to hear from me every day. Students and parents need to hear my voice every single day. Kind of vision casting. Where are we at today? What are we doing?
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I know that I've taken up the first part, and this is not the Charles Williams Show. This is Inside the Principal's Office with my co-host, Mike. So, Mike, I'm going to let you take over, jump into question number 2.
Okay, let's move to question 2, which is something that I'm extremely passionate about, and that is student achievement and learning. It is our why. It's why we drive in every day. But before we do that, I want to encourage everyone, and I want to ask everyone who is watching us, please remember to hit the follow, like, and subscribe button to stay connected with us and other great content from SchoolRubric and Inside the Principal's Office. Let's listen to the question, which comes from another Michael. There's a lot of great men named Michael. Michael Earnshaw, an elementary school principal and co-host of the Punk Rock Classrooms podcast in Lansing, Illinois.
Hello, my name is Michael Earnshaw. I am an elementary school principal out of Lansing, Illinois. I am an EduMatch Books author, and I am co-host of the Punk Rock Classrooms podcast. My question is, in April of 2020, a report from NWEA predicted that students would return in the fall of 2020 with only 70% of the learning gains in reading relative to a school year. What kind of COVID slide, if any, do you predict for the fall of 2021, and what are your plans as a leader to identify and address these issues?
That's why we drive in every single day, is to ensure that kids are learning, and they only have one first grade year, only one third grade year, whatever year they're in, they only have one. Tara, would you like to respond first to that question?
Absolutely. When we're looking at student achievement and we're looking at where our kids are, there's one really, really great thing that I think we really need to keep at the forefront of our minds. I was in this wonderful conversation with Lindsay Titus just the other day, and she made one of the most powerful statements that I think you can ever make. And it really resonated with what we've been doing. We truly need to be focusing on the gains our students are making and not the gaps that we keep talking about. The gaps are real. They're there for everybody. But we need to recognize the gains that our kids have made from the spring until now. This has almost been 1 year that we've been doing this. We're so shy of just a year now. And when we look at that, there are great gains that our kids have made, but what kind of gains did they make? Where are some areas that we may still need to focus? No doubt that is our focus. Where do we get our kids to go? But this is not a normal year. They're not going to have made the same gains as a typical year. And we need to focus on what kids who normally would have made those gains are not making them at all, and really touching base with them. We've made a lot of home visits. I can say that the data is as important as going to their homes and getting to know what's going on with them, because we truly can't meet their needs right now until we know what those needs are. So it's going to be as important to look at their data and the academics and their attendance and all of those important things as it is connecting with the person and the family to figure out how we can help support them. So when we've started to put plans in place, we just had a great big administrative meeting talking about all the things we need to do for kids moving forward. And when we're looking at identifying kids who truly need our help, it may be that straight A student who now is barely putting in C grades. Why? What happened? What went wrong with that? It's not just our child who's always struggled, who actually is making really good gains right now. We're seeing that. Like, our kids who struggle most have stayed connected and are moving forward with our data. But when we're looking at kids who have fallen behind, we need to look at that SEL piece. And that's where we said we really need to focus on, we're going to put intervention in place, but it cannot be done without a social and emotional component to it. So we're heavily involving our psychologists and our guidance counselors and some SEL experts that really will help us to set a foundation so that kids can learn. Because again, we have to keep going back to Maslow before Bloom. We've got to meet the kids' internal needs and what they need to learn, and do they have what they need, so that we can help them move forward. So there's so many things. And, I want to go back, Mike, you said before about teachers. We can't let that go either. If our teachers aren't in a good place, and if they don't feel supported and connected to what we're doing in our school environment, they're also not going to help our kids continue to move forward. So it is so important that we put our teachers and our educators at the forefront of what our needs are, because we need to make sure that we're meeting their social emotional needs and what they need to be successful in this environment before we can expect them to make our kids have all these gains and help them get where they're going.
Okay, Tim, give me some insight. What do you think?
It's a very interesting question. And really, for me, I think it's context dependent. So many different schools have different resources and are in different contexts. I have an international view because I've been in education internationally for so long. And I think when you look at from a point of view of American public schools or international American schools, compare that to public schools in Brazil or in Colombia where learning is completely stopped, it's a whole different ballgame. But since you asked about NWEA, schools that are doing the MAP test, I still think that's very context dependent. We just did the MAP test. We're analyzing our results right now. We are not seeing learning losses in math. Mm-hmm. We are not K through 9 or 2 through 9. We are not seeing learning losses in reading. We've actually seen learning gains in reading. But what our teachers are saying is they're seeing writing take a hit at that elementary level. Now that's our school. We have some parents at home that have tremendous resources that are using, so it's context dependent. But as far as the whole, I'm not concerned. I'm not concerned because I think any loss that we have right now, we're going to make up, because I see learning gains going forward. I see that where we're going, the new normal, we're going to be utilizing technology. We're going to be leveraging resources in ways that we just weren't. They were there, but we just weren't. We were in our comfort zones. And now that we've been forced out of it by the catalyst that is this pandemic, I think that we're going to catch up on those learning losses, and then we're going to see learning gains.
I'll start saying again, like I started. I think that it's very important for us and for teachers to be very, very clear on what kids are expected to learn and what they're expected to know. I kind of led into this question by saying, if you have a third grader, they only have one third grade year. So it's very important for teachers to identify what is most essential at third grade. What do they need to be successful in fourth grade? So I think that we have to identify what is essential at every grade level and work to ensure that kids have made gains and have mastered those things that are most essential at every grade level. At our school, we have given teachers an opportunity to truly collaborate. And I think that is going to be key to give teachers time to collaborate, identify what instructional practices are working for what kids, and make sure that we come in with solid tier 1 instruction every single day. And then we have time in our master schedule for tier 2 and tier 3 on those essentials. There's so much curriculum that we have to teach. We need to identify what is absolutely necessary and focus on that. And I know that kids will be very, very successful.
Mac, I have to agree with you. I like this idea. We have to change our perspective, right? I mean, first of all, what we are working through right now is not normal. So the idea of trying to make things fit an old model right now and saying, well, look, they're not making the gains that they normally do. Well, no, of course not. And in some cases they are. But instead of focusing on all the negatives, let's shift our perspectives. Because the other part of this, I really think that this is going to and should change much of how we do education, right? The way we use this information, the way we use, this data. And like we focused on that. I told my teachers, I don't expect you to get through everything the same way we normally would. So let's focus on what we might call power standards. Let's go for quality over quantity, right? A lot of times I think it's easy for us as administrators to have these ideas and say, yes, this should work. But we have to remember, maybe we're not always on the front lines. And so I know we had a question that popped up. And so I think it might be a good time to take a little bit of time to answer this question. It's asking about how can we support teachers with training to be successful, right? We have these ideas, but how do we make sure that teachers are going to be successful in the classroom? Tara, do you want to take this one?
Absolutely. And working with our teachers is something that I am most passionate about. When we talk about making those connections with our teachers and knowing what it is that they feel comfortable with, we started something a few years ago called Empower Hour. We did away with our faculty meetings because that sit and get is not good for anybody, especially now. We sit way too long. So when we're talking about what is it that you need, we took an EdCamp style approach to a meeting, and we actually asked our educators, what do you need from us? What do you need to be successful? So when you take that and you think about what they're looking for and then empower them to facilitate that conversation, we do that. And we're even doing that now over Zoom. So when we're talking about having breakout rooms and discussing, some of our teachers said, how do you do guided reading online? How are we successfully reading with kids when they are online? How do I do that with my in-school students when I can't give them all the books because we can't cross-contaminate books? How are we doing that? So we've found all of these little life hacks on how to do fun things that we're still getting the same point across. But it is a lot of listening to our educators and listening to what they need. I think that intentional pause and that intentionality of what we're doing and when and how we're asking people to use their time. Because if I ask for your time, it needs to be important right now because nobody has any extra time to give. So if I say that we need time, I need to make sure that that time is valuable for each and every person. And that means that even the specialist who's sitting there or that special ed teacher who they're always like, oh, this isn't for me, right? We need to make sure that what we're asking them to be there for is important. So when we actually talk about doing things and having those conversations and allowing our educators who feel comfortable with great things they're doing to share with one another, that has been the most successful thing that we're doing right now because we're listening and responding to what they're saying they need from us. And that's just so important.
That's right. I love what you said. And I think that is the key to supporting teachers is to understand this as administrators. We have to be to our teachers everything that we're asking them to be to our kids in the classroom. And what I believe is if we want students to learn at high levels, our teachers have to learn at high levels. I think that when teachers enter your building as a teacher, but also a learner, knowing that I'm going to learn and I'm going to have an opportunity to perfect my craft. And there's someone that's going to support me as I learn. They're going to help me reflect. They're going to, we have to do for them what we ask them to do for kids, help them set professional goals and identify a plan. This is where I'm going. This is where I am. And how am I going to bridge that gap? That is how we support teachers by empowering them and helping them be lifelong learners. And as teachers learn and perfect their craft, we will see it in our student success and our student data.
I just want to piggyback on something you just said, because when you think about utilizing people's talents, right? When we really sit back and look at all of the talent that is before us, I can't even tell you that we would not be in the place that we are today without our instructional coaches, our tech coaches, our Office of Teaching and Learning, who has actually taken themselves out of those like administrative, living in central office places, coming into our schools and making sure that all of our teachers have what they need on an individual basis. So without our amazing tech coaches who are there night and day, they're like, I'll Zoom with you now. You need to do that before school. You need to do that at 9 o'clock tonight. Absolutely. Our time, where we say we need to prioritize time and we need to give ourselves grace in what we're doing, that also means that sometimes our teachers go home and their mom or dad are doing those things, but then at 9 o'clock at night, like, I need somebody's help. And so managing that time where we actually can give people what they need when they need it is something that I've seen done beautifully across our campus, in that people are there when they need them and when works best for them, because it's not always our school day. So I think just that flexibility and grace for what people need and when is just key to moving forward.
I'd like to jump in on this question if I can, please. You know, Michael, listening to your how you responded there, I can tell you're at a PLC school. And I think that the same principles apply. What we needed to do to support teachers before the pandemic, during the pandemic, after the pandemic, these are universal principles. They still apply. The need maybe requires us to get it right more than ever. But this idea that we're going to bring in something external, that we're going to bring in some type of an expert, has just got to go, because we have the experts. The experts are our teachers. The smartest person in the room is the room. And what I've seen ever since I began championing PLC is that when you interconnect your faculty within grade levels, within departments, across grade levels, and now PLNs, like what SchoolRubric's doing, connecting us with educators all over the world, it allows that knowledge to flow, and it doesn't stay trapped in classrooms. So one of the things that I like to say is common challenges, collaborative solutions. And when my teams get together, I say, please, we want to hear about your successes, but what are the challenges? Because those are probably common challenges. And what solutions are you finding to your challenge? The best innovation, the best learning that I've seen happen at my schools over the years has been from one teacher discovering something that works well, sharing it with another teacher, that teacher applies it, it works well, and boom, it spreads like wildfire.
Right.
I think that's the way.
Tim, absolutely. And I might be shooting myself in the foot as, trying to be a budding educational consultant, but you're absolutely right. Bringing in outside experts to say, hey, I have all the answers, right? I am the gatekeeper. I'm going to give them, no. And what I'm thinking, and just listening to all of this, right? And we are talking about really expanding this inside the principal's office, because this is not just about hopping on a bi-monthly video call, right? This is about networking and collaborating. So imagine the power if my teachers were able to talk with Mac's teachers and talk to Tara's teachers and say, hey guys, how can we come up with this as educators together, right? While we're just like, hey, the power is in the teachers, and just how much more, I guess, effective that would be, even beyond the walls of our school. So I love that idea, Tim, that the teachers are our experts. So I know that we have another question, and I definitely want to make sure that we are jumping on this. So it's really about growth, right? So it says that kids have to know X by year Y, right? There's always those I can statements. So growth, physical and educational as individual. We all know how to ride a bike and tie our shoes, but we all didn't do it on the same timeline, right? I'm still learning to tie my, no, I'm joking. Why can't we make guidelines and time goals instead of requirements? What does that do to a child's self-esteem and willingness to take academic risks? Oh my goodness. I think you're speaking to the heart of all of us. So who would like to jump in on this one?
I would.
Okay, go ahead, Tim.
So I think the mindset that I like to take is it's not if, it's when. That all these kids are going to learn, and all these kids can learn at high levels. And I think that comes back to that linchpin belief that all educators must have, is that all students can learn at high levels.
Yes.
And it's just not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And then the variable is time. So, kids come to you from different places, and you got to meet them where they're at, and you got to do everything you can to get them to that next level. So to me, that is a mindset shift. And a lot of times I talk to teachers, and teachers are the hardest working, most responsible people I know.
Yes.
They've got the future of children in their hands. They feel that pressure. They don't need principals to motivate them. That's what motivates them. They've got kids who are in their classrooms, who they're responsible for. But sometimes they've got this feeling that there's this external thing. I got to get to the curriculum. I got to do this. I got to do that. And I try to take that pressure off them and say, no, man, meet those kids where they are at. So that's where I like the power standards. I like focusing on what's essential. And I like being able to allow students to be at different places at different times, to where you're enriching and accelerating where needed, where you're providing reinforcement and intervention where you're needed. And then if you got kids coming in at significantly different places, that is okay. Meet them where they're at, believe that they can learn at high levels, and close those gaps.
I couldn't agree with you more, Tim. And when we talk about looking at where our kids are at and moving them forward, it is all about knowing our kids and how well do we really get to know each one of our kids and their families. Because when we know where they are, we know how we can help move them forward. And you're absolutely right that educators are some of the most dynamic people in the world. And I think during this time, and this is something Charles and I have talked a lot about, is the power of our PLN and the power of surrounding yourself with people who help you to see what is possible and keep you working at very, very high levels has been absolutely key. And over this last year, I have met some of the most dynamic educators I've ever met. I feel like I work with them, but now I've got a whole other realm of people who are inspiring me daily to keep moving this work forward and to challenge our thinking and to keep us celebrating all of those wins with our kids and with our teachers. We definitely want to celebrate and we want to look at all those successes. But equal to that, we want to keep looking at how we're failing and how we're celebrating those failures and how we're falling up from them. So we all, in our school, we talk a lot, even with our kids, about falling up. Oh, we didn't do this great. And why not? And what did we do? Where did we misstep on that? Let's celebrate that, because that's a huge win, identifying. Yeah. I was just with a little guy the other day who said, I'm really proud of myself for not yelling and talking through that. And I said, buddy, I am so proud of you too, and he said, I couldn't do that before. So helping kids recognize where they've made those gains and talking through those are huge wins, are huge gains, because they will never be as academically successful as they can be if they don't know how successful they feel and connecting with those educational philosophies and boundaries that we sometimes set for them and opening those gates for them to continue to learn in any setting and what they need to do that. So just exciting.
Absolutely. I just saw Deborah make a comment that her son didn't learn to read until the 4th grade. Could you imagine if we were to just, like you said, focus so much on those time frames? I'm sorry, you passed the learn to read stage. Like it's ridiculous. So I am so glad we are talking about breaking all of these norms and figuring out how we can fall forward. Matt, could you close us out on this one?
I will say that I'm glad that you brought up that comment. I didn't learn how to read until I was in the 2nd grade. And there are many kids that come to my school reading in kindergarten. I didn't start reading fluently until I was in the 2nd grade. And it was not in a time with PLCs, what we think of now. But what I had was a team of people in my life, my dad, my mom. I give a lot of credit to my teacher, Thelma Brown, people in the community, Joan Irvin, who now has an elementary school named after her in my school, in my former school, in my home school district. My thing is this: I struggled, but there was a team of people that surrounded me to ensure that I got a skill that I need to be a productive citizen in society. And I think that we've progressed so much in education that we now know that team that came and surrounded me as a community to ensure I got that lifelong skill, we now know that it's that team within the building that, many years ago, it was me and Miss Broom, that one teacher in the classroom, and she was trying to fix me and I wasn't getting fixed. I wasn't reading. But now we collaborate and we have a school of interventionists and coaches and people that will ensure that our kids are going to get what they need, and that we're going to prepare for the future every single day that they're in our building.
Absolutely, Mac. And we're not trying to fix kids, right? We are trying to lead them. So
Right.
I'm glad that you ended it off with that. This has been an amazing discussion, and we're nearing the end of our scheduled time. But since the show is about providing solutions and being a call to action, we want to end this episode with something that we call ideas that stick, which is just one specific action-oriented next step or big idea that each of us has learned or has been inspired by today's conversation. So we're going to run through each of our ideas and share those out. So Mike, can we start it off with you?
Okay, I will go first. My big ideal is that you have to have consistent messaging inside your building and outside your building.
Thank you so much, Tim. We're going to swing it over to you.
So get comfortable with getting outside of your comfort zone. And I think that's what this pandemic has done more than anything else. It has been a catalyst. If you look at all the things that we're doing right now, none of this is new technologies. These were all things that we could have been doing all along.
Right.
And a lot of why weren't we doing it though? Because we were inside our comfort zone. And I think just as we want to create environments where we want to make it a safe place for our students to learn and to take risks, we need to create environments where it's a safe place for our teachers to learn and to take risks and to innovate.
Absolutely. We got to create those brave spaces. Tara, I'm going to pop over to you.
Sure. Just as Tim said, creating those safe spaces, we want to also do that for our parents and our families to be connected with us. So really strengthening those bridges between home and school and making sure that our parents feel like they can access us and they can be transparent with where their needs are and their kids' needs are, and how we can work as a team to continue to move the work forward and continue, much like Michael said about if we recognize that there is a place where a child has a need, we can't give up on him or her at any point during that journey. So we need to be working so closely together to continue to make our kids get where they're going and feel that success so that they know they can learn at any point through anything.
Absolutely. And I know we've talked a lot about parents and meeting our parents where they are at. And so that is where mine came from, which is just centralizing information to ease access. We actually created an app this year. It was designed for the health screener, but we've seen so many other things because now parents can just go to their app. They don't have to go to the website. They don't have to pop over here and then over there. Everything is in one spot on their phones, ease of access. We just wanted to make sure that our parents had that. So thank you so much. Ideas that stick. Mike, take us away.
We want to thank everyone for joining us today, and we want to make sure that you go to Facebook, our Facebook group inside the principal's office, and join the conversation. Again, this is a safe place. Being a principal and being a leader can be lonely, but I think that you've been empowered by the conversation today, and we would like to extend this conversation beyond this, 30, 40 minutes that we spent together. Join us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, again. Remember to hit subscribe and be sure to follow and like. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and we will see all of you so very soon. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for watching School Rubric on YouTube. Make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe in order to stay looped in on all of our diverse collection of shows, interviews, panels, tutorials, and more from educators around the globe. And visit us at SchoolRubric.com for even more great content, such as our online articles, Interact magazine, featured podcasts, and more. Thank you.